friends, how are you? And welcome to Crimes with Cole. So, hello. How are you guys doing today? I hope you all are having an amazing day. In today's case, we will be talking about a 10-year-old boy who shot his father while he was sleeping. The debate wasn't whether he had done it, but if he knew right from wrong. It is a very sad case because this little boy from the beginning was let down and shown that violence is the ultimate answer for things. This is the case of Joseph Hall. Now, before we get into this case, I'm going to let you know ahead of time that Joseph's father is a neo-Nazi, and that may offend some of you. It may be offensive, and for others it may not bother you at all. But I just want to throw it out there because I know some people have very strong beliefs about certain things. If it offends you, this may not be the video for you. Let's get into today's case and let me know what you guys think. This little boy who was 10 years old, did he truly understand the consequences to his actions? Jeffrey Hall was an unemployed plumber that lived in Riverside, California, which is somewhat near Los Angeles, and was a neo-Nazi member that held parties at his house weekly. He partook in rallies. In fact, he led a lot of the rallies that were being held in his area. And he was an advocate everywhere he went that there needed to be a white America. He was constantly patrolling the borders for the illegal immigrants. He knew what he wanted, and he did not sugarcoat it. He made it very clear as he was leading an anti-immigration rally in Southern California in 2009. His temper and anger didn't stop there. He took his rage home and his violent outburst home to his family. He abused all 5 of his children, but Joseph was the oldest, and he seemed to get the worst of it all. Joseph had been enduring beatings from his father for years and years. In fact, it started so early on in life and occurred so often that Joseph himself was an extremely violent little boy. Almost would come off heartless and cold to some because of his lack of emotion towards others and kids his own age. Usually small children get angry and may push the other kid or call them a mean name. Some sort of reaction is normal. But Joseph was on the side of being extreme. He was attacking kids or even adults if they had upset him, hitting them with anything he had within reach. Throwing stuff at them, biting, scratching, kicking. This little boy was mean. He wasn't stopping until he drew blood. He was rotten. He had already been kicked out of schools 6 times for these violent behaviors he kept having. And he's only 10. Keep that in mind. Being kicked out of school multiple times and you're only 10. But no one ever stopped to question why this little boy was lashing out the way he was. Joseph had once attacked his teacher with a pencil, trying to stab her at the age of 5. 5 years old, and he's attacking his teacher with a pencil. That is not normal behavior, and he was eventually homeschooled because his behaviors were so bad and couldn't be controlled. Now, I understand when a small kid, goes to daycare and picks up bad habits from other little kids, right? We hear about that all the time, how so-and-so sent their kid to daycare and then they came home and started biting because the other little rotten kids in daycare start biting too. I understand that. But you don't hear a small children trying to stab their teachers with pencils or attacking these kids, kids their own age, drawing blood from them. Like, oh God. Or taking a book and smacking the kid upside the head with it. But, what do you expect when you have a small child being exposed to neo-Nazi meetings at his house weekly? Not saying that that was the reason he was so angry and violent. I'm sure his dad beating on him, his stepmom and his sisters may have had an effect as well, but it's not like they get together and talk kindly to each other at these meetings. They're probably talking extremely violent and hateful, and kids pick up on that. So it's to no surprise, in my opinion, that Joseph thought violence was the answer to everything, because that's all he had been exposed to since he was born. Now, Joseph also was born with exposure to drugs. His mother had consumed heroin, meth, LSD, marijuana, and alcohol while she was pregnant with Joseph. He was diagnosed with ADHD and had a lower than average intelligence level. He started having uncontrollable outbursts at the age of 3, making it very hard for his own grandma to babysit him. On the night of May 1st, 2011, Joseph had gone into his stepmom and dad's room, grabbed a revolver, and went downstairs to the living room and had shot his dad in the side of the head while he was sleeping, killing him instantly. He had gone back into the bedroom and bluntly told his stepmom, "I shot Dad," after he had stuck the gun under his bed to hide it. When the police arrived, Joseph never denied shooting his dad. In fact, when police had taken Joseph in for questioning, they indirectly told him it was okay to give up his Miranda rights and speak with them, and so Joseph did, while remaining abnormally calm over the entire matter. This was without an attorney guiding him, which many would argue was not fair from the beginning. I mean, is a 10-year-old truly going to understand what giving up his Miranda rights means? Do they even know what Miranda rights are? Because of this little sneaky act that the police did, California now has a bill that states that all children under the age of 18 must consult with an attorney before waiving their Miranda rights. So once the police started asking questions about Jeffrey and Joseph's relationship, they discovered that Jeffrey was a mean man towards his children and wife. He was addicted to drugs, one which included methamphetamine, and found any reason to give Joseph a beating every day. Every day, this little boy was smacked around by his dad for years and years. And it wasn't just like a whooping. It wasn't, "Oh, you didn't take out the trash, so I'm going to bust your tail end." Or, "Oh, you're back-mouthing me or your stepmom, so I'm going to bust your tail end." It wasn't like that. It was more of a, "Oh, you're in my way and I'm trying to get to the fridge. Let me just slam you against the wall." Or, if Joseph were too loud, Jeffrey would come in punching and kicking this little boy, this little 10-year-old boy, a grown man, a 32-year-old punching his 10-year-old son for being too loud. That's not right. And it didn't seem like his stepmom did much to stand up for him because, Jeffrey was smacking her around too. According to his neo-Nazi members, Jeffrey was someone that thousands of people looked up to. He was a hardworking man who took care of his family and was a dedicated father. However, Children's Services had been called 23 different times on the Hall family for alleged poor living conditions, neglect, and abuse, but the reports were unfounded. However, when the police arrived to the house that night, they discovered dirty clothes everywhere. Mattresses that reeked of urine, blankets and pillows that were soiled and stained. Beer bottles laying around everywhere, and easily accessible guns for children to get their hands on, which is scary when you have multiple small children around. Joseph is 10 and he's the oldest out of the 5. That's a scary thought. And Joseph knew how to shoot a gun because his father had taught him while they were on their mini trips to the Mexican border to patrol with the other fellow neo-Nazi members. And when Joseph stood in front of the judge, his attorney alongside the prosecution wasn't trying to convince anybody that he did it or did not do it, but if he understood the entirety of what he had just done. And the judge said yes. Yes, he did. Joseph took that gun, shot his father, hid it under his bed, and then told the cops, emotionlessly, that he had done it. He understood, and the defense argued, alongside with the prosecution, that Joseph did not truly understand the severity of this crime. When Joseph had been taken to the juvenile facility, the guards had to buy him a pair of shoes because none of the ones they currently had at the facility fit him. And when he got his shoes, he asked the guards, "Do I get to keep these when I leave?" Joseph also, after being read his Miranda rights 2 minutes into the interrogation, he kept asking, "What does that mean?" And the officer had to repeat a numerous amount of times what each right in his Miranda rights meant. The defense also argued that his stepmom should not have been the parent in the room with him during the questioning because of her involvement in the situation, which actually led her to testify against Joseph later on during the trial. Now, also during the trial, an officer that spoke with Joseph said that he was extremely sad about the matter and was sorry he had done what he did. But what do you do with a little boy so filled with anger and rage? You can't just release him back into the community after he shot his father. So Joseph was sentenced to 10 years in a correctional facility for juveniles. When he gets out, he will be 23, as he had to wait a couple years for his trial to begin. This case is sad because if he does not get the correct help he needs while he is in there, he's going to just become a product of the system. And how unfair is that? That this little boy was exposed from the womb to drugs and alcohol, came out, raised by an extremely violent and hateful man, and had outbursts that no one ever tried to help him with. No one tried to stop and ask him, what's wrong, or how can we get this kid help? He's attacking kids and teachers at school. For what reason? And it's sad because this is a case that is going to happen time and time again because children don't get the proper guidance and do something like this as a child, and the courts treat them like they think like an adult. And I personally think 10 is just way too young. I know every case, you kind of have to look at it on an individual basis because every case is different. Every child is exposed to different types of life experiences at certain age. Some people grow up with great families, some people don't. But they should put this little boy in some sort of therapy. But now he will sit in a juvenile facility until he is 23, with other rowdy little kids. And if he doesn't get the correct guidance when he is in there, or even when he gets out, he will end up right back where he started. It's sad. It is truly a sad case, and I truly feel sorry for this little boy. But what do you guys think? Do you think this little boy truly understood the consequences of shooting his dad? Or do you think he just hit a breaking point and wanted all the beatings, the screaming, the yelling, and the violence to just stop for once? You'll have to let me know. And until next time, please remember to be safe, and I will see you then. Bye.